digital nomad visas, travel insurance, and homeschooling on the go. Uncover the secrets of a family that's cracked the code to permanent travel. If you have ever wondered what it's like to travel the world full-time with your kids, stick around to hear how one family turned that dream into a reality.
We just want to travel the world, the world, the world, travel the world.
Hey adventurers, welcome to the Our Offbeat Life Podcast, where we explore the globe-trotting lives of families filled with wanderlust. Before we dive in though, if you love stories of unconventional living, hit that subscribe button and join our community of free spirits. Today, we're in for a treat as we welcome George from the YouTube channel, Kensho Quest. George, along with his wife, Heidi, and their kids have turned the globe into their classroom and playground. From navigating digital nomad visas to world schooling their children, they've done it all. Get ready for a journey that'll make you want to pack your bags, hit the road. George, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it was my pleasure. It's been a long time since we've had a chance to talk, so...
Long time.
Well, before we dive in then, where in the world are you and your family joining us from today?
So currently we are in Johor, Malaysia. To be more specific, we are in a little tiny town maybe called Iskandar Putri, right on the harbor, and we are a stone's throw away from Singapore, literally.
Nice. You going to Legoland every day while you're there, or?
We used to. It got kind of old. We're actually going to go this weekend. So if you come out this way and you're going to spend some time here, definitely get the annual pass, right? I mean, that's the way to go, for sure.
Yes. We have fond memories of Johor Bahru. That's where we initially got locked down at.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we think about you guys all the time because we know this is where you guys were. So it's kind of funny, but not really, I guess.
It is and it isn't. It's interesting memories for sure. I was busy working the entire time, so I hardly noticed the time go by, but Brody and Little Man, they were constantly trying to find things to do to keep themselves busy.
I bet. Yeah. I'm so glad we're past that.
Oh, me too. Definitely. Well, I love to start these things off with a quick lightning round. So first thing that comes to mind, water, coffee, soda, or tea?
Water.
Pool or beach?
Beach.
Cat person, dog person?
Cat.
Okay. City or countryside?
Both.
All right. We'll unpack that later.
Sorry.
Unlimited free flights or a magical go-anywhere RV?
Unlimited free flights.
Time machine moment. If you could take your family to witness any historical event, when and where would you go?
Wow. That's a tough one.
That's a thinker.
Man. You know, I think I would just like to go back to 1960-something to see the landing of the moon.
Ooh, I like that one. Yeah, the landing of the moon. That would be a really cool one. Now, would you be in a spaceship watching them land?
No. I'd be happy watching it on TV.
There you go. All right. All right. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second here. For our listeners who may be new to the concept, can you give us your 60-second elevator pitch on world schooling? What it is, why it's amazing, that type of thing.
Wow. Okay. World schooling is for families who want to completely transform their lives with the way they educate their children. And for us, it's been completely transformative because, first of all, we get to choose the curriculum. You know, nothing is dictated to us. And we can do it at our own pace as well, which I feel like, you know, compared to like regular schools, you're really set in a certain pace and everything. Whereas, you know, with world schooling, you can go at your own pace. So if your kids are faster at something, you can go a lot faster. Whereas if you're in a classroom, you're going at the classroom's pace. So we really like that. And we also like the fact that by world schooling, the kids are learning more from experiences in the world. So not in a classroom setting. So what I mean by that is when we're on the road and we go anywhere, they can learn from that experience firsthand versus out of a textbook. So it's such a better experience because it sinks into the brain because they're actually participating in it.
I love that. You kept that so concise. That's perfect.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, good. Great.
All right, George, paint us a picture. What was the moment you and Heidi decided to throw caution to the wind and become full-time family travelers?
So for us, it wasn't just a sudden thing because when Heidi and I had first met already, I traveled a lot, and she didn't. So she was all for it, So we just started, going places. And then after she graduated from college, it was right around the time where there was like a huge economic downturn in the United States, and there were just like no jobs. This is 2008. And so because we had traveled a lot already, we had been thinking, for the, leading up to her graduating, like, you know what, forget about trying to find a job. Let's go travel instead and just see how long we can do it. So we had planned an indefinite travel to Southeast Asia. We started in Thailand, and we ended up traveling for 7.5 months. We did what I consider the Southeast Asian loop, starting from Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and then we flew to China because ticket prices were ridiculous, and we made some friends along the way, and we ended up in Europe. So then we visited 15 countries in Europe. And so this was between 2008 and 2009, and we traveled for about 7.5 months. And the only reason we came home is because we thought we were supposed to. We thought, you're not supposed to do this forever. At the time, there weren't many people doing this. There were, but there were, all backpacker style. And that was the same for us. So we were doing this backpacker style. And then after we did this, it just changes. We came home and we just couldn't sit still. We're like, we can't just settle back into this regular life. So our goal was to get back out there as soon as possible. And then by the springtime, we were doing it again. And then at that point, that was, spring of 2010. And it really became full time at that point. It was indefinite. And, we just kept on doing it because we just could not settle. Every time we come back to the United States, for a few months, we're just like, we get the itch again to get back out there because we had changed. Change is people. And, you know what I'm talking about. So, it just, there's this transformation. It's hard to explain, but you feel like you can relate more to the outside world than you can to your home country.
Yeah.
And
how long did you travel with just each other, and then having kids and deciding to continue on?
Okay, so we started full-time traveling in the fall of 2008, and we traveled pretty much continuously. We'd come to the United States and visit family and friends and stuff like that. So until about 2012, and around 2012, we decided, what, maybe it's time we have kids. So we returned to the United States just to have a baby, and we did in Hawaii, where which we had called our home base. And today, if we go back to the United States, that's our home base, is Hawaii. So we had our first child, and we stayed there for the first 9 months of his life. And at that point, we couldn't keep still anymore. So we started again. And we knew we could do this because from our previous travels, we never really ran into any Americans doing this, but we ran into plenty of Europeans that were doing this. So we knew we could do it because they were doing it. So why couldn't we? So against the grain, most Americans will tell you, once you have kids, you're done traveling. So we just wanted, again, also prove them wrong. I'm talking about with that too. It's like, so it's, completely doable. Anybody can do this, especially now. Before, you were using guidebooks. You didn't have the internet in your hand that you can, look for directions and stuff. We were using The Lonely Planet and, whatever primitive methods there were. So it's so much easier now. And back then also, there weren't ATMs everywhere. You had to carry thick wads of cash. So things are just way easier now to do it. So yeah, once we started, this was in 2014, when our son was about 9 months old, we started traveling again. And we learned quickly that we could do this. So we just kept on it. And the only time we would return to the United States, other than the pandemic, was to have our kids again.
Well, what led you to decide to go to the States to have the kids?
So the main reason was wherever we were traveling, which was mostly Southeast Asia at the time, as far as having a home birth. So we wanted to have home births for our second and third child. And this was based on, a lot of Heidi's friends that were having home births in Hawaii because, she while to me, I thought the hospital birth was okay, to her, it was a traumatic experience. And, she had learned from her friends who had home births that their experience was so much better. And so we looked at having home births abroad, but we couldn't find either a good setup. There weren't doctors available, as readily available for that, or it wasn't as widely as accepted, I would say, which seemed really strange to us. We thought it would be. One place that was Indonesia. However, they were not accepting new people because they were getting so many people from all over the world to go there and have their home births that it was really hard, to go there. So instead, we decided, okay, the safest bet was we'll go to Hawaii, where we know we can get really good care for home births. And so, this may not relate to everybody, but that was our reason
Okay.
for return to the United States.
That's interesting. Yeah, because in the first season, I talked to a couple, Brad and Jenny, who are now in New Zealand, and they decided to have their first kid. What was it? They had one in Malaysia, and I think one in Scotland too. From when I wrote that, people should definitely go back and listen to that one as well, about all about having births all around the world too, while traveling. So,
Oh, I bet that's fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. All right, so let's talk destinations then, because you've been everywhere from bustling Asian cities to remote villages. What's been your absolute favorite part of this so far, and why?
So is this can be even before we had kids, or
Yeah, let's
were
go.
we
Let's
just
go
talking-
even before having kids, or especially
Okay.
if it's before having kids. Did you go back there after having kids, and was it still as awesome?
So there are some places for sure. Like, definitely we were a lot more adventurous before we had our kids. And mainly it was, even to this day, we feel for security reasons why we haven't taken our kids to certain places. So for instance, there are places in central China, such as Yangshuo, which is a small village near a place called Guilin. And we visited that place in 2009, and it's harder to get to. It's a very famous place, especially for the Asian market, maybe not so much for the Western world, but it's like right out of a fairy tale. It's like a place where there's the huge limestone cars, picturesque, where everywhere you look would be just so Instagrammable today. This is before there was any of that. So hopefully this place doesn't get destroyed by things like that. But, just imagine hardly any tourists and getting on this raft made just out of bamboo, and with one of those cormorant fishermen, like a real one, just taking you down this river with crystal clear water, and just beautiful scenery everywhere, just like everything was like a painting, just so magical, like things that you would only imagine that were actually real.
That sounds
That's the
outstanding.
those are the type of things that we experienced way before we had kids, and it's just the wow factors, like these places actually do exist. And there was also this magnificent show on the river that it was put on by the same guy who did, I think, the opening series for the China Olympics in 2008. And it was just phenomenal because he hired local villagers to put on the show. So these weren't even actors or performers. They were just all local villagers. And there's just this magnificent show still on the river. I believe it's still going on to this day because it's been so popular, where they kind of cover part of the river, like with tapestries and things like that, and they put on this light show, and it's just so incredible. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just, again, just phenomenal that it's outdoors and things like that. So because of experiences like that, we wanted to take our kids to things like that, and we have to some extent. So, but not as adventurous, I would say, because the risk of getting sick is very high in a lot of these places. And that's because of, and sometimes, there's a lack of hygiene, right? You're going to have to use a lot of squat toilets, and in many places, and there's nowhere to wash your hand and things like that too. So because of that, we've refrained from taking our kids to certain places. I don't want to call out any place because I don't want to, make any place sound bad, because there's good and bad in everywhere we go. So for us, we do take our kids to some really cool places as well. So for instance, in Thailand, south of Hua Hin, where we lived for about 8 months. Anyways, there's a place called Samroyo National Park, which means 300 peaks. And within there, they have this temple that's built inside a cave. And in order to get there's two ways. You can take a boat if the water's not rough that day, or you can hike up this mountain, go up one way and come down the other.
And which
Our
route
plan-
did you take?
Well, we were going to take the boat. like, we're gonna go the easy way, because you still have to, once you get to the other side, you're still you have another mountain to hike up. But that day, the boat was closed, too rough water. So we're like, we're here, we're gonna do it anyways. Our kids were 1, 3, and 6 at the time, and the key is here is don't tell them that it's going to be a hard day. I think that's the key when you're traveling with your kids. Don't set it up for failure. You're just going to go out and have some fun. You're going to go on a hike and you're going to see this cool temple, and then we're going to get these cool mango shakes afterwards. So we go on that premise and we start up this hill, and our kids are all excited. And they're like, yeah, we're going to hike up this mountain. And we did. And they didn't complain a single time. This was unbelievable. It's one of the few times where we got 0 complaints, but and it was because we had set it up that we never said anything about the difficulty level or anything like that. And we just made it a fun trip. It took us longer because we had young ones, and Heidi carried our youngest most of the time, wearing him. But we were able to go up this mountain, come down, not really a mountain, but a pretty steep hill, come down and then go back up the other one. And on the way, so many families were saying to us, telling their kids, look, their kids are doing it with no problem. They're not complaining.
I've told my son that a lot. Sometimes I'll be like, look, that kid's not complaining.
Yeah. So, it was partially luck that day, but it was very rewarding, because we get there and there is this magnificent temple. And I believe it's an UNESCO World Heritage Site as well. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but it is part of the Samaroyo National Park. Okay. And, things like that, which are just really, really memorable, because you go to these more off the beaten places and there's going to be a lot less tourists. Yeah. So it's a lot more enjoyable.
That's very cool. Speaking of all this off the beat places, what kind of culture shock have you guys experienced as a family?
So this may not be answering your question, but at least for our kids, the biggest culture shock is returning to the United States. So
that's a big one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that a bit. Like, because your kids have how much time have they actually spent in the U.S.?
Less than half of their life. So especially our youngest, only the first 6 months of his life, he's been in the United States, and we visited twice since then for a couple of weeks at a time.
Is it mostly just Hawaii when you visit, or any place else?
So when we go back to visit family, and most of them are on the mainland. So we will return to California and visit family there.
Okay. And so, like, obviously, yes, from Asia to the U.S., it's a big difference as far as culture shock. So how did you navigate it? Like, what were some of the big issues that you did have?
For our kids, everything seems different to them. It's like the streets are a lot more, they're not used to the wider streets. They're not used to there being crosswalks everywhere, and when we go to restaurants, the food is so much different. So for instance, like our oldest son, he really loves Mexican food. And as you know, in Asia, it's almost impossible to get decent Mexican food. Yeah. So, getting different types of food is a big one for them. It's because it's just so different. The food is just so different. Not that it's a bad or good thing. It's just different. So they really enjoy it. But then there are other things about also in Southern California in particular. I have a sister that lives in Santa Monica, and Santa Monica is supposed to be a pretty nice place, right? And it used to be. However, there's quite a few homeless people there. And that's one thing we don't really see in Asia at all. And it's not because there's no poor people. There are plenty of poor people, but in Southeast Asia, they round them up, a lot of them. So you don't really have that issue. Whereas in Santa Monica, we were like walking down the street and we're getting yelled at and stuff by people who are on drugs, people who have just been, on the streets too long, and it's just not safe for them, is how we felt. And just see the expressions on their kids' faces, it's like they're shocked to see these people, these unfortunate people on the streets. So that's one of the things that's really a downer for them. Yeah. And for us too, because it seems to be getting worse. Because when I was a kid, growing up in Northern California, I never saw a homeless person. Never, unless we were like in the dumps of downtown or something like that, right? And then, but as I got older, in my 20s, we started seeing the occasional homeless person, and more and more and more. And now there's camps everywhere. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but these are the type of things that's totally different for our kids that they don't experience. So there's also a safety concern too, because the funny thing is people always telling us, like our family and friends back home, oh, it's so unsafe out there, and we laugh because we feel 10, 100 times safer being in Asia. Anywhere in Asia, we feel safer than when we are back home. So, for instance, when we went back home to California this year, and we stopped to have lunch at a Chipotle, and right outside, right out in front, there's this big sign that says, "Lock your doors. Don't talk to anyone because this place is known for drug deals in the parking lot." I'm like, what the heck? Right outside the Chipotle. We couldn't believe it. And then we go inside, and the bathroom's locked. That's pretty normal now, I guess. And so it's just that in itself is a big deal, because we don't ever have to worry about that stuff. We don't have to worry about leaving our bags in places and stuff like that. So, anyways,
yeah. I've been there. I've seen that. I haven't really been back to the U.S. in 3 years, and we're getting ready to go back here in a month. And those are the kinds of fears that going back. I feel, even in Mexico, I feel safer here than I did. And a lot of times, I'm from Chicago, so I've been around it all. I didn't always feel like, even people ask me, do you feel dangerous in Chicago? Or do you feel scared? I'm like, no, not really. There's bad places that I don't go. But that's like it is here too. But at the same time, you hear way more. There's way more stuff happening. And yeah, not to go down that whole tangent, but you're completely right about that. That is a big culture shock when you're a full-time traveler. The rest of the world doesn't necessarily feel as dangerous, and sometimes.
Yes.
So let's flip the script and go a little bit happier here for a minute.
Okay.
Family life on the road. I hope this is happier. It's not all Instagram perfection, right? So what's your secret to keeping everyone sane and happy within close quarters? You've got a family of 5, so.
Yeah, it can be challenging at times, for sure. It's not happy times all the time. That's for sure. We have, especially our 2 youngest, they fight all the time. Sometimes they're best buddies, but then every day also I'm like, hey, separate, kids. So, the important thing that works really well for us is to break things up. So we travel a lot as well. Even though we are kind of stationary here in Malaysia, we travel for, 3 to 6 months of the year as well. So by breaking things up is we'll go do something, so like right now they go to school 5 days a week right across the way here. But when they're not in school, sometimes we even take them out of school and we'll go do something just for a day, something to break the rhythm up. Yeah. Because what happens, at least in our case, is when they're doing the same thing over and over again, they I don't know if they get tired or bored or what. And so they just start, fighting with each other for no reason, it seems like. So again, what works for us is by taking things slow and breaking things up. Just do something different. And that's one of the things you can afford to do. I feel like, when you're out world schooling is, for instance, like with Kensho, our oldest son, sometimes when we're traveling for a month at a time, he won't even do any school at all, like 0 school. However, he is still doing school by doing experiences that we do. So if he goes out, then he gets all these experiences and we have him write about them later. So, it's an odd case where he's going to go a month, but it has happened where he's gone a month where we haven't required him to do any like tech school type of school stuff, and he doesn't really get far behind from that, he gets caught up later, but regardless, they're still learning. So, yeah, there's kind of that balance there because of that. But for the most part, I feel like our kids are pretty happy, and this is their life. They know this is their life, and they don't know, because they were born into this, they don't really know what it's like, otherwise, yeah. I would say. So maybe it's a little bit different compared to like people who have families that are in school now and are going to start this adventure. It might even be more exciting for them at first, in that case.
Yeah. When we met your kids, they seemed really happy. They loved the science, because we went to the science museum.
Right.
Yeah. and they loved all the science, the robots, everything. And I remember your oldest there talking to us, and didn't talk like a normal kid. I mean, talks like he's talking to a normal person. It's just it's normal. I love that about World School kids.
Exactly.
It's a little bit different in the fact that they can form bonds and relationships with people of all ages.
That is so true. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, David. That is so true. That is so true. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The kids, by being more worldly, they're a lot more open to talk to people for sure. And I feel like their speech level is at such a higher level too, because they're interacting with kids from different cultures, speaking different languages. And, and in fact, that's one of the things I love so much is that it doesn't matter if another kid is speaking a different language. It doesn't mean they can't play together, and they still do. So that is really one of the beauties of world schooling, I think, is that, and that our kids, they have zero prejudice, just zero.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I don't want to say anything here politically incorrect or not, but like they would never refer to someone as a black person because they don't know what a black person is. They just know of that person, like maybe in the days when we grew up, that's how they were referred to, right? Like, oh, you mean that black person, even though we're not being racially discriminating or something like that, or that Mexican person or something like that, or that Asian person. Our kids never, ever refer to that because to them, everybody is the same. They might be a different color, but that's just so-and-so over there.
Yeah, no, I've heard my son do the same thing where instead of saying the color of the person when identifying, it's like you see the person with the red hat over there. I mean, the color of the skin is not the first thing that comes to mind as a descriptor,
right?
Which I could say some people from our generation or previous generations that may not necessarily be the case.
Right.
So yes, either the whole world is changing, which I hope, or these world schooled kids are definitely seeing the world in a different light, seeing people in a different light, which is awesome.
Yeah. I hope you're right though about the fact that it's the whole world, and I think it kind of is. Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope so too. So I really do. So tell me about adventures now. You've had some crazy adventures going on, and especially since you've been back and forth between Malaysia and Japan lately. Has there been any kind of interesting, crazy mishaps or anything that's happened back and forth like this since you've been doing all your trips in Japan?
Well, recently, and we made a video about this, is I lost my backpack in Japan. I left it on a train, and I never lose stuff, since I was a little kid, because I used to lose things all the time as a kid. And one day I said, you know what, no more. And I listened to my mom. It's just have a place for something and always keep it in that same place and you'll never lose it. So with my backpack, it's always keep it on your person and you'll never lose it, especially like when you're on the train. So if you're traveling in Japan, you're going to ride the train. If you don't ride the train, I don't know how you're going to get around Japan. So you're going to take trains. And we would take trains all the time, 3-4 times a day sometimes. And we know the train system incredibly well because we spend so much time there. We make a lot of content just on how to ride the trains in Japan. And I broke, the biggest rule is to never separate your bag from yourself because otherwise you might lose it. And sure enough, that happened to me. And what happened was we were staying at a resort at a ski resort in northern Hokkaido. And after that day, like our last day there, we went skiing and everybody was really tired, but we had to take a train back to the city of Sapporo, which is the capital of the island of Hokkaido. And our youngest son, he never sits with me. We have like a flow, right? So he always sits with Heidi and our daughter sits with me. That's always how it works, but for some reason, as soon as we got on the train, he came and he ran to me and he sat in my lap. So we're like, okay, Haru can sit with Heidi instead for this trip. And he just like fell asleep in my lap, like almost instantly because he was so tired after skiing and stuff and playing in the snow. And I still had my backpack on and I'm like, this is just kind of uncomfortable. This is Japan, I'm going to take off my backpack. And I didn't want to sit it on the seat next to me because it's considered rude, because someone else might want to sit there. So I put it in the overhead bin, which I never ever do because you could leave it. And sure enough, when we got off the train 2 hours later, my son was still sleeping. So I just carried him off the train, left my bag right up there, and had all my gear in it, $7,000 worth of equipment in my bag. And I had no idea that I left it. It was like, We were back in Sapporo, the capital, and we went straight to dinner, had a nice dinner. And right after dinner, I reached down for my bag because that's what I would normally do. And it wasn't there.
Oh no.
So at that point, I'm like instantly, oh man, I knew I left it on the train. I knew where it was, but luckily this is Japan, and Japan's one of the safest places in the world. Usually what happens in Japan is if you leave something, the Japanese will not touch your stuff. They just won't touch it. It'll stay there. So this was the case. It was a long ordeal, but to make things short, what happened was it stayed on the train the rest of that night until the conductor found it, and he took it and put it in the lost and found. And luckily, I was able to get it back because there it was in the lost and found, completely intact. So
if that had happened in the U.S., they would have either someone would have taken it or they would have called in like a bomb, and somebody would have been in trouble. But yeah, that's amazing. You got everything back and
everything,
no problems.
Yes.
How many days did it take before you found all your stuff?
It was I got it back the next day.
Oh, it was the next day too. Wow.
Yeah, next day. Yeah, and in fact, what's crazy is we're actually really good about not losing stuff, but on this particular trip, we lost a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff. And luckily we got everything back. Like Heidi left her headphones, this pair of headphones right here, at a hotel in somewhere, I don't remember where, but we called them, they found it, and they mailed it to us.
Wow. Yeah, I've left my Kindle several places. We left an iPad, and we always seem to get it all back. For the most part, people around the world seem to be so far seem to be honest. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's really nice, and it's heartwarming knowing that people, most people out there are honest. So it's really good to know.
All right. Now let's go back to the kids again, because I'm curious. We talked about world schooling, and you talked about how your oldest has gone sometimes on books, sometimes he's out there exploring, and then he journals about it. How do you ensure that all three of them are getting as well-rounded an education as they can?
That's a good question, and it's a hard question. So our youngest is 3. He's in, I guess they call it kindergarten. So they're in a Montessori school. Him and Haru, so she just turned 6. They're both in that same school together. And right now they're getting their education, so we don't have to worry about that. But, once we move, which we're going to do at the end of the year, then what we will continue to do is so they're also taking some online courses too. So that's one thing Kensho does, and our daughter Haru, she does as well, is she's going to start doing more of that along the way. So the one thing that we are trying to get right now while we're still here, while they're attending the school, is to get her writing skills much better, and a little bit of reading. We don't expect her to be a full-on reader in the next 6 months, but to just get that down, and some more of her little bit of math skills. She's actually, that's the one part that she's excelling in. So we feel that's not a big issue. So as far ahead as they can get during this time when we're stationary is what we always try to do is whenever we're going to be in a place for a decent amount of time, is try to get as much education as possible that, that they can retain. Because we know it's going to be definitely harder once we're on the road again, because the next 6 months after that, we will be on the road. We're planning to be in Japan, Thailand, possibly Vietnam, and possibly here in Malaysia as well, and Korea. So, that's like 5 places that we plan to be in the next 6 months after 6 months from here. Mm-hmm. So we will definitely break up the time. When we're traveling a lot, we always set aside time like, okay, this day we're just staying home. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be doing school that day though, because if they're tired, we're just going to let them rest. And then we'll have another day where they can study and do some education. And then we'll again start mixing that up with world experiences, like going to museums and just places. They don't even have to be museums. They could just be fun places where we know they're going to get some education as well.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Museums and just outdoor activities all over. They offer a lot of experiences and learning. When we went to petrified forest and learned a lot. I didn't know I was going to learn that much, let alone my son, just from seeing these essentially rocks now, but it was amazing,
Yeah. Where was that? I'm curious. Where's the...
Argentina.
Really?
Yeah, most of them were all, well, everything was blown down. They're so old, but there's like big trunks laying on the ground. Most of it is all pieces. Everything, every single rock that you were walking on was a petrified something. It was so
That
amazing.
many? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It was so cool. I mean, I couldn't stop with my camera, getting close to the ground. My son took the camera and he was all over doing all this stuff and looking at everything. It was so amazing.
Yeah, that's a great experience. And those are the things that the kids really love, right? Just being outdoors. And that's one thing I want to mention too, is just sometimes it's the simple things, right? It's just the simple things. It doesn't even have to cost money that they enjoy and that they learn things from.
That's right. This experiential learning that the kids get is just so invaluable. You could be a homeschooler and you can teach your kids everything out of the books, and your kids are still going to excel better than kids in a traditional classroom. But if you're a homeschooler who's on the road, you have a leg up. You can literally be the place where George Washington crossed the river. You can go
Right.
to the Parthenon. You can see where these scholars talked ancient times, and so many more examples. So
Exactly. Yes. You hit it on the nose right there. But the funny thing is our kids, they just think it's normal that everybody gets to do this. Everybody gets to see it. So yeah, but you're right. Yeah. And I'm just hoping that it's all, back here sinking in.
yeah. Well, now let's also look at it. You're working. You're not always just here stagnant. So how do you juggle work, travel, family life on the road? Do you have any secret strategies for maintaining harmony while wearing all of these hats?
It's a disaster.
Personal harmony, like the Zen.
So I think I might have a leg up on most people because I've been an independent contractor. I've been working independently, as a sole proprietor for, over 20 years now, even before we even went on the road. So I've had to learn how to discipline myself already to work from home and, have a family life as well, I guess, before, we've been on the road all the time. So the first thing I think is discipline. You need to set aside time, make sure that there's time for your work. Otherwise, you're not going to feed your family, right?
Right.
So set aside the time for work is the first thing. And then just balance is try not to do too many things at once. Just always break it down. So today, like this week, actually, we're in Malaysia right now. We're here. We know we're going to be here for 6 months. This is what we're going to do. Our kids are going to be in school, and Heidi and I are going to work these certain hours during the day, and then these certain times a day we're going to spend time with the kids. It always doesn't always work out that way. There's still a lot of fighting going on, but for the most part, this works. Just by definitely designating some time for certain activities, for work, for play, for family time, and for our kids to play with their friends as well, and just a lot of downtime. That seems to be the most important thing. Is kids, they get tired, way more than we do.
They do.
So
Yeah.
give them just extra time. That seems to be the biggest thing for us, is by always slowing the pace down. So whether we're traveling or not, obviously when we're traveling, we have to slow down even more. The fast paced thing never works. So that's why, like you, we're slow traveling. Slow, don't see 10 places, or 5 countries in 5 days. That's just ridiculous. Instead, see one country and enjoy it and actually experience it.
Oh yeah. That's the best way to, in my opinion. I couldn't be jet setting everywhere right now. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens now that we're going to be getting rid of the car and moving into a jet set life, but hopefully we can still kind of keep it on a normal, slower travel basis, because I
Right.
agree with you. Super fast travel, it just burns out.
Right.
You get
Yeah.
travel anxiety, you get a little, yeah. It's just, it's hard on everyone.
Yeah. And that's when things go wrong, like losing your backpack.
Like losing your backpack, yes. So I'm curious. So George, how do you keep those ties strong with family and friends back home when you're constantly on the move?
Maybe I'm not so good at that. But with most of my siblings, I have a pretty big family. There's six siblings in my family, six of us. And we're all in a line group except my oldest brother, who just refuses to join line. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But we still communicate with each other on that on a weekly basis. So, we know what's going on. And even with my oldest brother, who's not part of that, we'll like email each other at least, here and there once in a while. So we know what's going on in everybody's family. And even our recent trip back to California was for our kids to see their family. So for instance, our youngest, Sora, had never met his grandparents, none of them, because of the pandemic. He was born in Hawaii and most of our family lives on the mainland. So our main goal was to go visit family. So we have to, make time for that. At least we're thinking once a year now, because, people are getting older, right? As people get older and you want your kids to know their grandparents and their cousins and things like that, then we have to make time. Because the one thing that we learned is you can't expect anybody to come visit you when you're traveling. A lot of people will say they will, but most people will not. So it's up to you if you want to go see your family and friends. And that's what we did. The sole purpose of that trip was family and friends.
I get it.
And now that we've done it, we're inviting people. We're always inviting people to come see us. But out of the, let's say, 100 people we invite, maybe 2% will actually do it. So
that's 2% more than I've ever gotten to come out. But I mean, you also got to think about it. It is sometimes a big ask, especially if you're across
Absolutely.
oceans. So I get
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. But I have a cousin, who's in Thailand right now. He didn't even tell me he was going to Thailand until a few days before his flight. We could have just hopped over there. So, hey.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the difference. Okay, so let's switch then from those family and friends to your travel family and friends, or your travel friends, family. So we find that we visit a lot more of our traveling friends, a lot more than normal people might think you would, because you happen to be on the same continent or in the same country. So how often do you end up running into or planning run-ins with family or travel friends?
Not that often, not as often we'd like to. However, we do plan to do at least a couple times a year. Mm-hmm. And, most of our friends are actually in Thailand. So we have a strong connection there. And for our kids, those are like their best friends, and I would say even our best friends now. And you know why? It's because we're relatable, right? Yeah. We believe in the same things. And, we're in the same boat. Our kids are doing the same things. And we're learning the same way, everyone. So we get along so much better than, not to say that our family and friends back home aren't great. They are. It's just that our I guess, world schooling family friends, we feel so much closer, like when we hang out, right? It's we have such a great time. So, and it's because I feel like we're just relatable. We just get along because we understand each other, for everything. Like when it's time to go home, you just know, or our kids are tired or something, or when it's time to eat and certain things, it's just so much more relatable. So, yeah.
Definitely. All right. And a little bit more on that money talk, because earlier you said, you've got that discipline because you've been working for yourself for a long time. You understand all that. How do you fund this lifestyle? Are you independently wealthy? Do you have any creative solutions for making this happen?
Yeah, so definitely not independently wealthy. I would say out of all my siblings, I'm the poorest one, yet I, travel more than any of them 10 times over. However, the reason why this is all possible is because of the job that I've been in since, I graduated from college, which is in IT, which is really interesting, actually, because my background is actually in art. So completely useless. I have a master's degree in art. I wouldn't say completely useless, but, I do IT work. And as soon as I got into it, this was around the time of the internet, and so as soon as I could, I was saying, what, I don't really need to be here. I would tell my employer, and luckily my boss was so understanding, and to this day, we're just like great friends, is that he gave me the first taste of it. He says, well, you don't have to come here. So I moved away. I had a job in Riverside, California, and my wife got accepted to UC Davis to go to school. So we moved up there, and this was like the first taste of oh, I don't need to go into the office. So all my other clients after that I would be like, this has to be remote work. if you want me to work with you. And then, here's my proof that I can do this. And at the time, this wasn't so widely accepted. So for some of these other clients that I would take on, is that they would require me to come into the office more often, which was fine because I racked up a ton of miles from doing this. And that helped fund, our traveling that we were doing on the side. So, everything fell into place with this because of that, because of this first taste that I got from one of my employers who allowed me to do this. And then, it just became more and more possible with stronger internet connection and internet being available more widely. And again, that's why I'm saying like now, when we first started, I had to carry around a separate router because as a relay, because most places the internet was so bad, or in an entire hotel, let's say you're in a hotel, there was one internet connection and you had to be either on the bottom floor near it, or you need to have some type of repeater or router to get a connection. And that's what I would do. And sometimes I would actually be working from the roof of a building to try to get internet. It was so crazy. Or I'd have to set up shop in an internet cafe, things like that. So again, there's no excuse today because it's so easy. There's internet everywhere. You can get it on your phone now. So yeah, I've learned from all these things, and because of that, for me, it's really easy. And luckily, since I work in IT, I've been able to, have all these clients over the years, and by, keeping these clients happy, I've been able to keep them. So this is the interesting thing is I don't get a lot of new work. I just keep my clients. And that's really the best way. If you want to get into, and I think any type of freelancing work, the goal is to get good clients and keep them, because you only need a few. You don't need a ton of clients. So instead, just try to stick with what you have and improve upon that and see how else you can get more work for them.
That's excellent. That's great advice. And I'm sure the longer you work with somebody, the I wouldn't say leeway, but the better the relationship. So not only can you get more work, but you might actually get more time, stuff like that. And they might understand your travel situation even more than a new client would.
Absolutely. Yes. You hit it on the nose there. That's so true. Yeah. In fact, one of my clients that I have right now, when he hired me, he didn't know that I was living abroad. But the lady that hired me knew I was. So I was working with her. And when he found out that I was abroad, he was going to fire me. He's like, no way, you need to be here. But, he started to realize soon that well, why do I need to be here? I've never met him to this day, as long as the work gets done and as long as there's good communication, it all works. So obviously he's turned around now and he's like a good friend of mine. So
you broadened his perspective.
Right. Yeah. And especially now today, I don't think you're going to have that problem. Anybody who's trying to get into this doing freelance type work, they know, there's so many people who's working abroad now, digital nomads, right? That's a new term, I would say. I'd never heard of that when we were first traveling and stuff until recently. So it's kind of funny. But
yeah, they were all just backpackers or wanderers or
right.
or vagabonds or something. Now it's all digital nomads.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the digital nomads, because it is a new thing, you did a whole series on your day Rantau pass in Malaysia. So can you walk us through? I know you did a whole series and it took a lot. Can you give us the nuts and shell overview of what it is? And I'll have our listeners go and check out your video series as well on your channel.
Sure. Okay. So the Rantau program was introduced, I guess, in 2022 by the Malaysian government. And the goal is they wanted to bring in people in the IT field to help boost their digital economy because they felt like they were lagging behind in it. And so originally, it was only open to people who work in the digital field. And this was very broad. You could make YouTube videos and apply for it because that's considered digital. So, yes. And however, with Malaysia, Malaysia's one of those countries where they stick to their rules. They completely different from Thailand where, whatever. It's way easier in Thailand. But in Malaysia, they stick so much to the rules that there's a lot of bureaucracy involved in the process. And because this was completely new to them, it was quite complicated. And so we were one of the first ones to actually succeed in getting our pass for this. But it was close to a 6-month process because they were figuring things out as they went along. There's a lot of things you need to do. So if you were in the digital realm, the good thing is you only need to make $24,000 a year. So you need to show proof of that. And this is the thing that most people seem to have problems with, is showing proof that they make this money. And I'm like, show them your bank statements. You need to show them your bank statements. Most important thing. They want to see your bank statements. You can cross out all the other stuff, but they want to show that you are putting money into your bank. The next thing is you need to show that you have work. You need to show that you have continuous work. Not that you had work a year ago or that you have upcoming work. You need to show that you're making at least $24,000 a year, not just in this past year, but in the previous year. You need to show it. You need to show proof. If you cannot show this proof, you're going to get declined. And this, for some reason, is the biggest issue that most people have, at least from, the feedback that we've been getting from so many people that have contacted us over this. So what I recommend to you is talk to whoever your clients are, okay? Write a letter for them. Make it as easy as possible. Write the letter for them explaining what your job is, how much money you make, and then ask them to sign it. Most of them will be so happy to do that because you did all the hard work for them already. They might make some slight changes, but if you do this for them, the likelihood of them actually signing it and giving it back to you is very high. So do that. Put in as much work as you can, make it as easy as for your employer, because you need to show proof. And that's how you're going to show proof, is by having them write a letter. And if possible, have them write it on their company letterhead when they do it, and make sure they provide an email address and a phone number, because MDEC, the Malaysia digital company that's behind this, they're going to call them. They're going to make sure it's legit. They will call them.
They check your sources.
Yes, they will check.
All your references.
Absolutely. Because like I said, they are sticklers. They stick to the book 100%. They do not make it easy. And there's a lot of things. There's a background check as well. So if you're from the United States, you need to do an FBI check. So I did an FBI check. Even though I was living in Malaysia at the time, I was able to do that. I had to send it, via FedEx and all that stuff. So it costs a little bit more money. They since simplified the process now. I think you can provide like a letter of good faith that you are, a good person. I think you can do that, have it notarized. So there's certain things that work now as well to simplify the process.
Okay. So 6 months later, or how long has it been now since you've had it now?
So we've had it for over a year now. In fact, we've just renewed. We've officially finished the process of renewing, which was actually more of a pain in the butt than it was the first time around.
All right. So overall then, a year and a renewal later, was it worth it?
If you are actually going to stay in Malaysia the whole time, then probably yes. But in our case, the fact that we spent half of the time in Japan or outside, maybe not so much. However, I would say that overall, I take that back. Overall, yes. And the reason why is because we have a home base, like how Brody wants a home base. It's nice to have a home base because being a traveling family, you have to live as minimal as possible, right? Because when you move everything. You take all your stuff with you. So you either do that or you get a storage somewhere, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? So you take everything with you. Whereas when we finally got the visa to stay here for a year, we were able to rent a place for a year, which means we'll get a much better rate. And we were able to buy things and leave them here. So whenever we go, we could just leave our stuff. We could take a backpack and go, which you really can't do if you have a lot of extra stuff. So here in our condo, we bought our kids desks, so they all have their own individual desks. And, we just bought them a lot more things that they normally wouldn't be able to have. So to give them a taste of what life would be like stationary, but, they know in their minds that we're going to leave soon and this stuff is going to have to go. So that's one thing that they understand. It's still going to be hard for them to part with a lot of their things, but at least they know that this is part of the lifestyle. So, these are the type of things you have to take into consideration, is that even if you get a visa, is that nothing is permanent. You're going to have to move at some point, and like with the Rantau, the maximum is 2 years right now. They might extend it, and I think they should because, with competition and all that, you might want to do this, especially, Thailand just introduced a new visa that makes it so, seemingly so easy to get in. However, that's only for 6 months at a time.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Very interesting. All right. And also, I wanted to touch base because in a recent episode, we actually we chatted with Safety Wing about travel insurance. Mm-hmm. I hear you use their services as well.
Yes.
What was your experience like Do you have any tips or other traveling families considering travel insurance?
Yes. So we use Safety Wing. We've been using them for 6, maybe 7 years now. Since they've been in existence, we've been using them continuously. So first of all, if you are going to apply for a visa, you need to have health insurance. And the good thing is that when we applied for a visa in Thailand as well as in Malaysia, they both accepted Safety Wing's health insurance. As far as our experience with them, we've used them twice now. And the first time was very, very interesting and very beneficial to us, is because like with you, David, and your family, we were in Malaysia during the peak of the pandemic, and we were going to hold it out. We were living in Penang, and we were just going to stay there because we're comfortable. We feel safer here than we would if we went back to the United States. However, after we had made our decision to stay, Safety Wing, we never expected this, emailed us and says, hey, guess what? There is unprecedented, this has never happened in the history of the United States, but your insurance covers what is called political evacuation. This is considered political evacuation because there is a level 4 warning now on the U.S. Department of State site, which means that we will fly you home for free if you want to go. But you need to let us know in the next 7 days. Otherwise, forget it. So we thought about it for a couple of days, and we said, okay, we'll go, since you're going to, and they paid for everything. It did take, so here's the interesting thing. They give us the option. They said, we can book the flights for you right now, and it'll be no out of cost expense to you. Or you can book your own flights, and then we'll reimburse you later. Since we wanted to think about it, we decided we were going to book our own flights. That way we can choose our own airline we wanted to fly and stuff like that, which we did. And they did reimburse us, but it did take 4 or 5 months to get reimbursed, which to me, I think is pretty standard, with these insurance companies. But hey, we got completely reimbursed, and we're forever grateful to Safety Wing because they actually told us we could take advantage of something, which sounds kind of ridiculous for an insurance company. So because of that, we've been very happy with their service. However, the prices are going up a little bit all the time, it seems like. But the good thing, one of the things that, I don't want to sound like a Safety Wing commercial, but their service is really good. What I mean by that is if you have a question, you can hop on their chat and there's somebody there to respond to you. Whereas with so many of these other companies that we've used before in the past, I've never talked to a real person or actually chatted with somebody. It's always been via email. This might be changing now because, we haven't really tried anything in the last few years because Safety Wing has been so good. So, I don't know if that's changed, but because of that, we really like Safety Wing. And also recently we decided to test it because a lot more people have been asking us, well, what about if somebody needs to go to the hospital and stuff like that? Can you, give any experience on that? So we finally use that as well. My daughter had to go to the emergency room when she got really sick recently, and they reimbursed that pretty quickly. So again, we paid that up front, but after we submitted our paperwork, that was reimbursed.
That's very cool. And when I talked to them, they were very proud of the fact that they were there for everybody. They're a really new company when COVID came out, and
Yes.
And they were actually afraid that helping everybody get home, they might break the bank and have to go under. But they took the risk, even though they might go under, just because it was the right thing to do. And when they
Right.
mentioned that to me on the call, I was like, wow, that is a really great mentality, not something you normally hear from a business. So, again, not trying to sound like a commercial, and yes, they've sponsored a couple of the episodes this season and they were on the episode, but we use them, a lot of our friends use them. You're not the first person on this season alone who's told us about their experience with them either, so that's awesome.
Fantastic to hear. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, because of that, because of how they treated us, we're loyal, it's like we feel, like they got our backs. So,
Definitely.
and they also have a lot of new plans now too. So, depending on the type of insurance you need, definitely check them out if you're looking to get out there and start traveling, because they have more than just digital nomad insurance. They actually have full coverage insurance now too.
Yeah, Nomad Health. Yeah, they have the Nomad Insurance and the Nomad Health now. Yeah, it's really cool. All right. Well, looking back on your journey so far, what's been the biggest surprise about full-time family travel?
Oh, biggest surprise. I would have to say that it's a lot smoother than I thought it would be, especially having 3 kids. So, and I think a lot of it is because the world has changed so much because of the pandemic, in our favor, that, because there's so many more of these digital nomads now that there's all these visas out there that are available that allows people to move to these countries. So this is a funny thing. It's like, I'm surprised at how many people contact us thinking that they can just move abroad. No clue whatsoever that they need a visa. So, the first thing we all say is, wait, you're moving to Thailand? And well, how are you going to move there? Because you can't just move to Thailand. You can stay for 30 days and then get an extension. But, and they're like, what? I need a visa? Yeah. You can't just move anywhere and get a visa. You need a visa. And that is the biggest stumbling block. So because of the pandemic, and all the digital nomads, there's so many visas out there now. So because of that, we have so much more opportunity, and even Japan just launched a digital nomad visa, which is crazy. I would never expect that to happen. So we have so many more different options now, different places we can go. So because of that, we could be on the road indefinitely if we wanted to.
Excellent. All right. Well, George, you and your family have become quite the travel experts. Let's put some of your knowledge to the test with a quick round of Southeast Asia travel trivia. I'll ask the questions, and our listeners can play along at home.
Okay.
Are you ready to flex those travel muscles?
I'll do my best.
Which famous temple complex in Bangkok is known for its giant reclining Buddha statue?
Wat Prakau.
All right.
Is that right?
Yes, you got it.
All right.
What iconic twin towers dominated the skyline in Kuala Lumpur?
Petronas.
Yes, the twin towers. All right. What is the traditional Indonesian dance form characterized by elaborate costumes and intricate movements?
You got me on that one. I want to say Gambella or something like that. I know what it is, and it's quite an amazing performance. But no, I can't think of. The name. It's not Kathakali.
No, the simple one that I found was just Balinese dance.
Balinese dance. Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, they might call it. It might be referred to over there as the Kathakali. Yeah, I think that's the same one. It might be. But I'll have to double check that one. All right.
Let me know.
What is the traditional Vietnamese noodle soup consisting of broth, rice noodles, herbs, meat?
Pho.
Yes. Good pronunciation. All right.
I try. I'm sure it's way off, but
I would have said pho because that's
pho.
Just,
Yeah, pho.
I don't know.
Pho bo.
Yes. All right. What is the name of the famous bullet train system in Japan?
The Shinkansen.
Yes. I don't know anybody else besides you who would have probably gotten that one.
That was too easy, man. You shouldn't have given me that one.
All right, great job, George. All right, and our listeners out there, I hope you did well as well. Tell us in the comments whether you aced it or whether you learned something new. I kind of want to know. And this just goes to show how travel can broaden our horizons and teach us about the world, because even though, George, you felt these were pretty easy, I'm sure, there's probably a lot of people out there who are like stumped on a lot of these as well. So that's pretty cool.
I got lucky. You happen to ask me ones that I know, because a lot of them, it's hard to remember the names,
Well, what if I had asked you what the giant mountain in Japan is called?
Fujisan is the correct name.
There you go. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I do have one last question for you. What advice would you give to families considering or starting their own journey into full-time family travel and world schooling?
First of all, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. Don't listen to what anybody says who's trying to tell you otherwise, because they haven't done it. So don't listen to them. All right. Most people are trying to hold you back. Okay. So don't listen to them. You can do it. We meet families all the time who are doing this. All the time we're getting started doing this. So you can do it. Just take it slow. That's, I think, the most important thing is once you get on the road, don't have too high expectations. Take it very slow. Your first country, stay there for 3 months, 6 months, even a year if you get a visa. Just stay there. Enjoy it, Take it slow. And as far as schooling goes, take that slow too. And I highly recommend, making the world schooling idea really a big part of it by experiencing the world with your kids. They're going to learn so much more than they ever will from a textbook. So again, I think those are the most important things. Take it slow and just, enjoy it. And again, don't listen to what anybody else is trying to tell you that you can't do it, because you absolutely can. Even without a large income, for sure, you can do it, because there's so many places where the cost of living is so low. We didn't really touch on that, but I'll tell you right now that the cost we are living in a beautiful condo. We have a view of Singapore right outside our window. If this place was in Hawaii, we'd probably be paying $15,000-$20,000 a month for this place. That's how nice of a place that we're living in, and we are paying less than $1,000 a month, including all utilities for where we are right now. So you can do this, and you don't have to splurge. We're kind of splurging. There are many places where you can stay for half, even a third of the price. So you can do it.
That's excellent. That's great news. Yeah. Don't listen to the naysayers. Number one, don't listen to the naysayers. You can try it. Try it out. You don't have to sell your home first off the bat. Go for a month. Try your best. Get a leave of absence from work. Find a job that'll let you work from online. I get it. All these things are very important, because you're not doing vacation everywhere we go. It's not going to cost you $1,000, $4,000 every single month to live in, just for your rent or anything like that, because you're going to be living the same and spending the same amount of money you do where you are, if not less. Right now, for people in the States, you'll probably spend a lot less. So
So well said, David. That was so well said. Yes.
So, wow, what an incredible journey. George, thank you for giving us a glimpse into your existing world. It's been exciting. You're traveling. Your family has been traveling for going on, well, you've been traveling since 2008. So, 15 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's 15
that's pretty
years.
great.
Yeah.
Well, to our listeners, if you're feeling inspired, pack your bags, hit the road. Be sure to check out Kensho Quest on YouTube for more family travel adventures, especially if you're going into Malaysia or Japan areas. They've got a lot of content in that specific area to help people, along with travel hacks and packing tips and product reviews, all about full-time travel. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Have you considered full-time travel with your family? What's holding you back? Or if you're already living the nomad lifestyle, what is your best tip? Leave a comment wherever you're listening to this podcast. And remember, life's an adventure. Make it an offbeat one. Until next time, keep exploring. Thanks, George.
Thanks, David. Hope to see you soon.
Just wanna see something bigger than us, to see and smell and taste something completely new. We just wanna travel the world.